I will be inviting up Ricardo Hicks, who's going to be talking today on the AV Trap, how to protect your budget without compromising your show. Ricardo Hicks is the CEO of Tech Factory and past president of MPI Carolinas chapter. Ricardo's 20-plus year career in audiovisual began in college when he interned at a major recording studio. He has since worked as a recording engineer, hotel manager, and business development professional. He also serves as a mentor to many audiovisual professionals. Please welcome Ricardo to the stage.
Well, hey, my MPI extended family. It's good to see y'all. It's been a little while. But if y'all indulge me for a moment, I'm going to go back. I have some technology back here that's going to pair with another presentation that I'm going to do for MPI Global. So indulge me for a moment while I get this started. Before I get started, I actually want to say I will not implicate this friend, but I was talking to this friend in the airport, and that's how this session came about. And we were talking about technology, and I often use the weapons that AV uses or AV professionals typically use, right? And that person said, wow, that's a great topic. The AV trap. And then honestly, it took me about, I would say it took me about a month before I agreed to do it because of the wording, right? I don't know if I want to deal with something called the AV trap. Let me think about this and if I want to do this presentation or not, right? And then I had to frame it like, okay, instead of a trap, I think the trap is really the lack of education, right, around a topic. That's where the trap lies, right? I want to let you know, I will do a little bit of recording with these Meta AR glasses. I do not have medicine in these glasses, right? The old people used to say medicine back in the day, right? So they're not prescribed. You'll see a light on when I record, and I'll use this again for something else in the future. But thank you for taking the time to indulge me for a little bit. So we'll talk about the trap of AV. And when I'm saying the trap, is really on us, the lack of education. And if anybody knows anything about me as an AV professional, I'm very obsessive about learning audiovisual and just learning the craft that I'm in, right? So my wife is here, my lovely wife. Give her a hand if you don't mind. She will tell you I will wake up 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. I will go downstairs and I will start researching, doing all kinds of different things to make sure I'm ahead of the curve when it comes to technology, because this is what I do. If I'm not doing that, I need to give it up. That's my opinion, right? So let's talk about the trap. So many planners fall into the AV trap, spending more without improving quality and or cutting corners that may cost more later. So we're going to talk about budget, right? But budget isn't always just how much you're saving, but it's also preventative as well. And you have to think about what assets you are renting, leasing, or what the production company is bringing in, and where your money could be better spent, where those dollars could be better targeted. So what's the goal? The goal is to protect your event budget and deliver an exceptional experience. AV is not just gear. It's about expertise, preparation, and partnership, right? So let's get into it. And I'm going to walk around a little bit. I'm going to pace a little bit. And the reason I'm doing that is because I have an AI camera back here in the back. So it's some new technology. It's actually tracking me with facial recognition. So that's why we're doing this today. So let's get into it with the most controversial ticket item, in my humble opinion, internet. See, yeah. So this crowd gets it. I'm turning on the camera now. This crowd gets it. Internet is one of the most controversial subjects when it comes to venues. We're fortunate that we work in a lot of venues across the country. So we see, I've probably been in 70% of the convention centers, large convention centers in the country, right? I know that sounds crazy, but I have. I've worked in them. So I've seen prices run the gamut. And slight shout out to Raleigh Convention Center. They've always had, this area has always had pricing, for internet that was, that was conducive to doing business. Let's just say it that way, right? So internet Wi-Fi, let's talk about that a little bit. So when we're dealing with the closets back in the back that have these connections, right? Where we're talking about, okay, how much bandwidth do you need for this, that, and the third, right? I want to kind of break it down and kind of expose a little bit of what that looks like, right? So you have a cable that's coming in. It's coming into one of these various boxes, right? And then it's going out, patching into 2 or 3 different boxes that throttle or that are segmented, right, to have a certain amount of bandwidth to give this ballroom, this room, the salon room, whatever room you may have, right? That's the technical of it, right? So you have one box that's right above the top that's, okay, this is 3 megabits per second. That's what this box will yield you, right? Right below it, you have one, this connection right here is 100 megabits per second. But really, it boils down to how much bandwidth you need. You have to know what you need. How much bandwidth do you need for a Zoom, a Teams call, or a Google Meet, right? Anybody have any idea how much bandwidth? And this is very important because, and we'll get to it, I don't want to jump ahead of myself like a preacher, but we're going to get to it, but I want to know if anybody, non-AV professionals, if you're an AV professional, do not answer this question. How much bandwidth do you think you need for a Zoom, Teams call, or Google Meet? And you don't have to wait for a microphone. Somebody can just shout it out.
A lot.
See,
Someone said a lot.
you're going to pay $20,000. Who said that?
Melinda.
$20,000, $30,000 for the internet. Yeah, that's how you're going to get stuck with that bill. Anybody? No, that's good. That's a good guess. 5 to 10. That's a really good guess. All right? Think about devices, and yes, that's good. I wasn't planning on talking about that, but when you get into the devices, you're thinking about the devices and splitting up that bandwidth, like if you buy 100 megabits of Wi-Fi, right? You're thinking about how many devices, right? So, and that's all over the place, because one person is doing email, one person is doing YouTube, it can be all over the place. It can be from a phone to a tablet being 5 to 7 megabits, and the other person just needs 1 because they're just emailing and texting, right? Because, they have some bandwidth issues with their phone. I'm gonna say what it is. It's actually 3 megabits per second is what you can get by with a Zoom, Teams, and Google Meet, right? How much bandwidth do you need to stream to, say, a YouTube, right? How much bandwidth do you think you need to stream for YouTube? Anybody? 10? I like that. I say 10. I like 10 because 10 gives you headroom. That's a technical term that we talk about, and that gives you the ability to vacillate between low and high, right? So really 6 megabits can get you there, but if I'm asking for it, I'm asking for 10. Thank you for that, Angela. That's great. Very important questions to establish at the very beginning when we talk. Because right now I'm actually talking about hardline internet, right? You were talking about Wi-Fi, and it's good. You need to think about those devices, make those calculations, right? But I'm thinking about hardline internet because that's really where that bill and it can be tremendous for large events with thousands of people as well for Wi-Fi. But you have to start off knowing what you need. And you have to also understand whether what's the difference between, I might be getting ahead of myself, whether you're streaming or whether you're doing a Google Meet or a Zoom, right? Sometimes we're producing an event with picture-in-picture, lower thirds, and all those things, but it's going into a Zoom webinar. Well, you need 3 megabits. You don't need more bandwidth because you're producing this beautiful package going into a Zoom webinar for, we've done a webinar for 20 people we've done them up to 10,000 people, literally, right? Just because 10,000 people are watching doesn't mean you need more than 3 megabits per second, right? But if you're thinking big like that and you don't understand the nomenclature, my tech team, they hear me talk about this word all the time. Nomenclature is just a set of terms that belong to a craft, right? I love wording. I love technology. That's all it is. So if I use a word, I'll definitely define it, so I'm not trying to look like I'm talking over anybody's head. So what are some streaming essentials, right? This all ties in because let's be honest. Sometimes the internet bandwidth is not on the in-house AV company. Sometimes it's separate, right? But it is very impactful to your audiovisual spin because we're doing hybrid meetings, we're doing virtual meetings, right, in these spaces, and it can really grow really quickly. But let's talk about some of the other essentials that go along with this when we're talking about internet usage and audiovisual. So if you see something on your job order that says encoder, right? You know, we're not, most of the time, I'll be honest with you, AV professionals, we're not trying to trick you with these big words that are on these quotes, right? Even our quoting software, we have a simple terminology, and we have the real, you can export it with the simple terms, and you can export it with the full detail, right? Sometimes it's just us not giving you the view that you need to see of it, right? So you end up with the technical language and nomenclature, right, that pertains to what we do, and you're like, oh, what is an encoder? It's like, okay, it's $2,000 for an encoder, right? Well, the strength is understanding as a planner and an AV or a professional what an encoder does. Sometimes you have an encoder, and actually I took a peek over at American AV's tech table, and they actually have a switcher over there that has an encoder built into it, and it also records. How do I know? Because I own about 30 of them, right? So they have one over there that does that. Now, do you want that device to do your encoding, your switching, and your recording? No. Just because it can do all of those things doesn't mean that you utilize that piece of equipment to do all of those things, because it's small, it's compact, it does a lot of different things, but oftentimes what we'll do is we'll split the load between these machines. Like, you know, so I'll have a switcher and I'll just use it as an encoder, or I have a switcher and I'll just use it for the time being as a recording device, and I'll have something else doing the other load, right? So a switcher, right? So a switcher is just taking multiple video sources, whether it's your cameras, your PowerPoint, laptops, multiple cameras, and you're able to switch between them. Very different than a switch. A network switch, you don't add the ER on it. What I showed you earlier, a couple of slides back, this is a networked switch. These are network switches, right? So not to be confused with a switcher. I know it's a lot, right? But I want to break it down for you, because at the end of the day, you want to have that AV partner, whether it's your in-house AV partner or somebody that you bring in from outside that you can talk to about these different devices, right? You want to know what it means, right? You don't want to nickel and dime everything, but if you approach it from an educational standpoint, okay, talk to me about this, right? And any true partner should be able to talk to you about all the equipment that they're supplying you, so you're educated. I know at Tech Factory, we definitely will take the time out. If I'm not on the call, if you add me to the call, I'll go on and on and on, and somebody will have to stop me. So a streaming computer. A streaming computer is also an encoder, right? So you might not have something on your bill that says, okay, this is an encoder, but if you're comparing two different quotes, you have a company here, American AV, they have an encoder on it. You have Tech Factory, you have LEMG. You might have a streaming computer on Tech Factory. You might have encoder on, these are synonymous, right? So some people use software for encoding, and we'll do it on laptops, we'll do it on computers, right? And sometimes we'll actually even switch with software and put videos in software. And you know, at the end of the day, you're really just trying to have these items so that you can have a stable streaming broadcast, and internet speed plays into it, and that redundancy, and then that headroom. And right, okay, you know what you need, but you have the 3 megabits per second. We're going to do a Google Meet, we're going to do a Zoom, whatever, but are you going to be downloading anything while that's going on? And if you are, you need that headroom that we talked about earlier, right? So that 3 megabits is not going to suffice, because once you add in a network switch and you add in another computer to that mix, you know, somebody's downloading or uploading, it's slowing things down, right? So that's where that headroom comes into play. You have to think about these things, right? So I didn't time this, so bear with me. I'm watching the clock right here and trying to keep a pace. So you nailed down what you need for internet, okay? You're doing a Zoom or Google Meet, or you're doing a stream, you nail down your bandwidth. One of the most important things that you can do when you get on site with your AV production partner is, hey, can you do a speed test for me? And where do you go to do a speed test? I'm glad you asked. Speedtest.net. Go to speedtest.net and see if you're getting what you're paying for. Very, very important. Again, we do a lot of traveling. We're 70% travel at this point. A lot of people don't know that because I don't do the greatest job of marketing. I'm too busy head down doing the work. But you'd be surprised how many venues will go in, do a quick speed test, and realize, okay, we paid for 10 up, 10 down, symmetrical. They'll call it, so whenever you see something where they ask you, okay, we're going to sell you 10 megabits symmetrical or dedicated, right? Dedicated bandwidth, and it's symmetrical. They're saying you have 10 megabits upload and 10 megabits download. When you're streaming, the upload speed is what you want. When you're downloading things, the download speed is what you're going to want, right? So that 10 by 10, very, very important, right? Because I have a laptop here that I'm going to download things and upload things, and I have this computer here, my streaming computer or my encoder that's going to take on 3 to 6 megabits. So when you get there, the first thing you want to do, you get that connection, is do a speed test. And if you do tests and it's wavering from, okay, I got 3 megabits this time, I got 4 megabits this time, well, 3 and 4 is not 10. You can't add the test up to make 7, right? So what you do is you go to your internet service provider and like, hey, I don't have the 10. So they basically, they put it into the switch. You're probably sharing and maybe not supposed to be on back in the back room, right, where they patched it. It's like, okay, we know that this top unit right here with the red is going to give us 3 to 6 megabits, right? Which is, being lazy, just they're doing a little Google thing. But no, I asked for 10. Well, they didn't go back in the back and switch it from the top one to the bottom one, right? And sometimes I'm simplifying this because some people have IT professionals that actually work for them. So you want to make sure that you're having this conversation and that they're doing their part and you've been holding them accountable to what they're charging you. Because that 10 by 10 symmetrical can cost you anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 a week, right? For one hardline connection in one room. Can't move it from room to room. Can I pay for it here and then move it over to? No, you can't do that, right? So it's going to be very important. So that speed test is mission critical. Mission critical. Anybody have any questions right now, right? Because I'm talking fast. I'm super excited about this.
Okay. We got one.
Right. Oh, yeah, nice. I like it. Go ahead.
Can you give us a more specific definition of encoder?
Encoder?
Yeah.
So encoder, what encoder means, great question, it means that this device is going to take all the video and audio data that you're sending it, right? So the encoder is going to take the video from the switcher, and it might be my camera, might be my PowerPoint laptops. It's going to take that feed. It's going to take the audio feed from the audio console, right? Take those. It's going to code them to transmit over an Ethernet line, and then so it can be decoded on the other end. So that's what the encoder. So it's actually encoding the audio and the video into ones and zeros to be transmitted over an Ethernet cable. Yeah, because you're streaming. That's a great question. It's a great question. Thank you for that. Anybody else? Anything before I move on to the next section? All right. Am I still in an okay, yes. This is a true event where a client was faced with a $20,000 Wi-Fi/hardline internet bill. After I talked to them about the simple things that I talked to you about, like what I do with all my clients, and I don't get the opportunity, let me say this, I don't always get the opportunity to do this because the client sometimes has already done this and you're just brought in on the back end. But you see the numbers up there, right? That bill went from $20,000 to $2,500, right? Very impactful. Now, the client had the money to pay the bill. This is one of my clients that actually had the money. It doesn't mean anything, though, right? You want to get what you pay for and you want to know what you need. So, again, the trap is the lack of knowledge or the lack of communication with your AV partner. So it's great to have a partner. And even if you're partnering with the in-house audiovisual provider, we don't do in-house, but even if you're partnering with them, communication is going to be key because here it saved $17,000, right? Just a little. Yeah, I remember you talking about a bill that was that crazy before, right? Were you able to get it lowered? Didn't you bring Brent in to consult with you? No, I'm sure he lowered that bill for you, but these bills can get crazy. So avoid the trap know what dedicated bandwidth is. I think I might have browsed over that a little bit, but dedicated bandwidth is, again, they're plugged into that network switch. You have an IT professional saying, okay, they're paying for 10 up, 10 down. They're paying for 20 up, 20 down. They're not sharing on the same switch as the other rooms that are adjacent to them, right? But there's a cost associated with that. And if you need dedicated, get dedicated bandwidth, right? If it's mission critical and it's worth me paying this $5,000 for this line. But if you're doing a Google Meet and you're embedding video and audio on a Google Meet, Zoom, or something like that, that 6 megabits is going to get it taken care of for you. And you don't necessarily, unless that convention center hotel is very crowded, tell them you're doing a Zoom meeting, because that's what you're doing. They don't need to know about the production, the lower thirds, the picture-in-picture, none of that fancy stuff. That's just an opportunity to charge you more money. So you need to know what you're doing and what you need. There's another question? Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, so a lot of times when we're doing fundraisers where you have like text to give, the question always comes up when we're planning, do you have a dedicated bandwidth scenario for those situations, because everyone's on their phone, and you may have guest Wi-Fi in the convention
Yes.
center or whatever, but is that sufficient, or should you plan for a dedicated?
No, that gets right into that. So you want to have that conversation, and you want to understand what's happening in the venue at the same time, so that you can get a solid 3 to 6 to do your Zoom if you're doing a Zoom, right? It's important. You don't want it to drop. But the cost implication of a non-dedicated, is could be $600 to $5,000. So it's a 10x variance there, right? Delta between them. So I really push those conversations and really try to understand what's happening in the venue, because it's just going from one switch to the next switch over. And okay, is this switch also handling the Wi-Fi? Are you going to, are you pretty certain that I'll have that 3 to 6, or is it going to dip up and down? You want to ask, they'll know the answer to those questions. They'll probably want to know why you're asking those questions, right? But you want to make sure you're going to have a solid Zoom call, Google Meet, or whatnot, and that may have production in it. I explained what symmetrical is, right? So if you need dedicated bandwidth, you want to know, okay, I'm doing 10 by 10, I'm doing 5 up, 5 down, I'm doing 20 up, 20. So they can sell you symmetrical, and, they might have a package that starts at 20 up, 20 down, and you don't need that. And it's like, okay, you need to come back, and I need a package that's between 6 to 10, right? Or you can tell them, break it down to 6, because it's keyboard strokes. They may have it printed up, but this is what they're selling it at. But be careful to sign before you get these things answered, right? Because on the trap is on the back end that's when you realize, okay, they're charging me $50,000 for internet, and they're willing to take it down to $15,000 if you use the in-house audiovisual provider, right? That's the trap. That's part of the trap as well, right? So know how much bandwidth you need.
Ricardo, we got a question over here.
Go ahead.
How do you feel about bring your own Wi-Fi products?
That's a good question. It's limited, right? The amount of attendees. There's a guy that we've used before in the past that said he can comfortably do about 500 self-contained. And how they do that is they take hotspots, professional hotspots that have AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, merge them all together, merge the data plans together, and post Wi-Fi hotspots all over, right, connected to that. This gentleman also told me that he could come in and actually buy maybe symmetrical bandwidth. Maybe he'll get a 10 by 10 or a 20 by 20, plug that in as well, sum all of that together, so it enhances the experience a little bit. So it's worth, once you start looking at $70,000 for Wi-Fi or internet, it's worth exploring what that looks like. And then maybe you need to tell your attendees, it's like, okay, we'll give you enough bandwidth so you can text and you can check your email, but is it worth it to pay this bill so that you could surf the web on ESPN or something like that, right? Or YouTube? It may not be worth putting those dollars there, right? I love educating. I'm going to go ahead and say this. I love talking about the internet thing, because I feel like if we continue educating and talking about this, then the prices will get driven down to where it's in range, just like power. Like you're reselling internet at a certain point. You're reselling it. Let's be real about it. Yes, we have infrastructure. I believe in charging for, I have a guy on staff who's $120,000 a year, and he's protecting, he's watching to make sure we're not risk averse and all of those things, right? And the equipment has to be refreshed every few years or whatnot, right? You find out what the math is on that and, mark it up 25% and split it up between, okay, these are the connections. That's the real way that it really should be done. And it will go that way if enough people complain about it, right? It'll get there. We're already regulating security, so there's regulation on that. You can't resell power in a venue. Why can you resell internet? Somebody tell me. I don't expect it.
Well, some charge you to use an outlet.
Say it again?
Some hotels will charge you to use an outlet.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm not going to go down that trail today. But no, if we have what time? How am I 25 minutes in? They clock fast over there, Norris. I'm messing with Norris. I know Norris pretty well. All right. So negotiate Wi-Fi rates, and verify upload and download speeds, upload speeds for streaming, and avoid per device charges if you can, right? And also have those conversations with your attendees. This is what we can do for internet this year. That's what we can do because we want to put more into food, projection, audio, whatever it may be. So let's get into a little bit of audio basics. When do you need a mixer? You need a mixer. You should have a mixer on your bill if you have more than one audio device in a room. And at this point, I'm talking about basic breakout rooms. You're going to have a mixer in a gen section. We have a mixer over here. So if you're going to have a podium microphone and laptop audio, it's time for a mixer, right? So you should see that mixer on your bill, right? When do you need a digital mixer, right? Digital mixers have come in. They're a little bit more expensive, but they have the EQ and the ability to, equalization. Y'all remember, I know some people that are old enough to remember stereo systems at home that have knobs on it and the 31, that's a 30, that's what an EQ is, right? And we literally, in the AV world, we're adjusting those frequencies so that we don't get feedback. If I were to walk right, Norris has this room very well EQ'd. It sounds really good, right? A sound system should definitely be understated, and it should sound like it's just amplifying my natural voice. It sounds really good, but if I walk in front of that speaker and get within like a foot, it'll start squealing on you, right? So what he did the work of making sure that if I'm, 5 feet away or 10 feet away, I'm testing them now, right? Actually, I tested them earlier. But the speakers are well EQ'd to where I'm not hearing any feedback, right? So he did the work on the front end with the digital mixer to make sure those things were done. Now, back in the day, we should have a line item where we would actually put an EQ paired with the mixer when we would have more devices, right? So if you have more than 2 microphones, especially 2 lavs, that's when you're going to need an EQ and do some equalization, right, for the room standpoint, right? And that digital mixer comes into play definitely when you have 5, 6 different wireless microphones particularly, and 5 or 6 different devices to where you can EQ the room so that when you get into the proximity of the speakers, right, you're not feeding back. So it's worth that cost. And what is the price difference, right? So an analog mixer, so one that's not digital, for a basic breakout room could be anywhere from $50 to $125, right? A digital mixer, once you're getting into multiple inputs, lavs, handhelds, you're looking maybe $250 to $500 depending, on the size of the room. And it could be more. If you have a band, you could end up paying, $750 to $1,000 for a mixer per day, right? So understanding these basics, so I'm trying to get you to see beyond like the Allen and Heath QU, so this, that, and the other, Midas, so and so and so and so. You don't need to know all of that, right? You just really want to get down to, okay, I think this is a digital mixer. Can you explain to me, do we need this in this room? I only have a podium mic. Do I really need this digital mixer in this room, or do you have something that's more affordable, right? So you could go from $450 to $125 per room, and if you have 10 rooms, you know, that's a big difference in understanding. It's like, oh, I have a podium mic and a laptop audio in these 10 rooms. Do I really need that $450 digital mixer? Do they have something else on their shelf that can take care of me in these rooms? And the answer is yes. If they have that digital mixer, they have something else they can give you, right? So think about those things. Some wired mics. Sometimes a wired mic is going to be okay. Now, it's more work on, actually, I take that back. It's less work on us. So we have to actually get on our knees and take the cable, but we don't have to worry about batteries, right? And we don't have to worry about radio frequency. So with wireless mics, there's more work because you have to go in every city. I wasn't even planning on talking about this, and I got to be careful. But in every city you go in, you know, the reason we have wireless mics and they have frequency, they have groups. You have Shure or Sennheiser. Those are the Coke and Coca-Cola of microphones, a Coke and Pepsi-Cola of microphones, right? When it comes to wireless especially, and wired. But they'll have a microphone that's $1,000, right? Or a wireless kit that's $1,000. But they'll make 3 or 4 different frequency bands within that $1,000. So think about, y'all know we tune our radios. Those are frequencies, right? Same thing's happening with wireless microphones, just higher. So instead of 90, you were looking at 450 megahertz, you know, to 600 megahertz or so, right? That we're tuning these microphones to be able to communicate, you know, from microphone wirelessly to over there, right? Just like the belt pack that I have on here. What's the frequency, Norris? What am I on? 465, right? And it's a dot and some numbers after that, right? So they'll have those different ranges because wherever you go in the country, there are other competing TV stations, FCC, all of those things, right? So you have different choices of bands to choose from because of location. So we have to go in, we have to actually scan these frequencies, figure out, okay, I can use a J1 in this town, but a G3 is only going to get me 6 or 7 microphones that I can use. But if I change it to a J1, I can get 25. This is the type of stuff that we have to do before we get on job site, right? So the point I'm going back to why a wired microphone is $25 to $50 versus a wireless microphone being $125 to $175 or $200 per microphone, it goes into that, right? So if you're in a breakout room and you have a Q&A microphone or you have a tabletop, you have a panel on the stage, right? You might have 5 panelists. Well, do you need 5 wireless mics or could you use 5 tabletop microphones? Tabletop microphones are going to be about what a wired microphone is, right? It's more work on us at the front end to wire it in, but it's less work in figuring out the cabling and all of that stuff, right? And it's a cheaper microphone. So $50 versus $150 to $200 per microphone. Again, you multiply it times 5, you save $650 per day in a room just understanding, like, do I really need them picking up a wireless microphone? Can tabletop, and it can move the gooseneck around. It's going to sound just fine. And to be honest with you, a wired microphone is going to sound better than a wireless microphone. Wireless microphones sound great, right? But that gets into more technical stuff that we're not going to talk about. So you're not sacrificing quality with a wired microphone is what I'm saying. So you have to just understand the use case and what you need it for. Q&A microphone, if you're going to make them come to the aisles, right, in a gen session, and you may want 1 per hour for wireless microphone, 4 wired microphones, but you may be on a budget, or 4 wireless, you might be on a budget, and it's a 4-day conference, right? You can save $100, $125 a microphone if you do a wired mic. Will work for us on the labor end, but it's changing batteries, and then you have to think about the aesthetics of it, the taping of the cables. You have to understand if it's worth it for your event. You have to know your event. Also, we talk about speakers. Now, I know I have some technical people in the room. These pictures right here, there's a point source speaker. These are point source speakers. So pointed at the source is going to cover a certain amount of range. The one on your left, on your right, is a line array system, right? This picture is showing something that I'm not going to get into. This is very nerdy. But I'm showing you this because, you'll see something, DB technology, so and so and so and so, or JBL, VRX, this, that, and the other, right? maybe sometimes a point source speaker are going to be fine. So have your tech company explain to you, do I need, what is this? Is it a line array or is it a point source? What is the price difference, right? It's not a crazy price difference between those two. But once you start stacking, a line array, you see them at concerts all the time. And the reason they do that is so they can throw further and wider, right? But really further in the distance. So they stack them on top of each other, stack. So that top speaker is throwing 250, 300 feet back. That bottom speaker, this is called a J array, that bottom speaker is throwing 50 feet, or 25, 50 feet in front of it, right? And you can just, in between that, it's covering everybody else, right? So do you need rigging? You have to understand, like rigging is can be cost prohibitive, right? But you can honestly floor support a sound system for up to 1,000 people with ease. You just have to be creative and you maybe use some delays and whatnot. It just depends on the room, right? So you have to understand the rigging implication of your audio and if it's needed or not, and be able to talk through it, right, with your client, right? You don't have to know everything, but it's like, okay, I have 1,000 people. I see that I have rigging on my bill. Do I really need to rig a sound system? Explain to me why. And that person may know that room. It could be inside or outside provider that says, okay, we've noticed some problems in this room because of cement floors, there's no carpet, there's no acoustic treatment on the sides of the room, whatever, right? And they may say, okay, rigging is going to be the best situation for you in this space. And as long as they can articulate it and it fits your budget, that's, go for it, right? If it doesn't fit your budget, press them to see what we can do. It's like, okay, I know that something can be done without rigging for 1,000 people. What does it require us to do? Delay speaker system, is it not going to be as aesthetically pleasing? The answer is yes. It's not going to be aesthetically pleasing, but you may be able to save $2,000 a day. And actually more than that. I'm just talking, you can probably save $2,000 to $3,000 a day. Easy. So that's how you avoid the audio trap, right? So I'm just giving you some quick basics. Know your mixer needs. Know whether you have multiple inputs. If it's a podium mic and a laptop audio, or even a wireless mic at the podium and laptop audio, do I really need a $450, $700 digital mixer? The answer is no. Have an idea of rigging or not. And to be honest, I've done up to 2,000 people, I'd say 2,000 people, and not rigged before, and it's been fine, right? You just have to know the client, you have to know the room, situation to be able to talk through it. Maximize wired mic usage, and know when you need an A2. I didn't talk about that, but this is in the audio sector. An A2 is an audio assist, right? So it's a person that's micing. You might have an A1 that's sitting at the console. That's the person sitting in the console tuning the room, right? But you might have somebody that needs to mic. You have 4 or 5 speakers to mic. You want to have an A2 if you need an A2 to, if you have multiple speakers and need to switch microphones around. So you have to spend more money, but it's going to cause for an efficient run of your show, right? You might have a lot of music cues and things like that. Know that okay, I need a second person here assisting my audio professional, right? And the A2 is more, like I said, it's more of a production need than anything. Video basics, so we talked about switchers a little bit and encoders, but just to give you an example, actually the switcher on your right is very similar. It's the same brand of switcher that's over there. It's a little bit bigger, but it's a switcher, it's an encoder, and it can record as well, right? But the cost delta between that ATEM switcher and this E2 that's over on your left, on the left-hand side of the screen, is tremendous. You can be looking at $125 a day, and the E2 is, $700 a day or something like that, maybe $1,000 a day or more, depending on what market you're in, right? But I promise you don't need an E2 if you have 1 camera, 2 PowerPoint machines, and no delay screens. You're not going to need that robust of a switcher. You're not going to need a $1,000 switcher for that, right? And just because the switcher on the other side is smaller, it can do an array of other things, right? But you don't want it doing all the things that it can do, but you want to be somewhat familiar with, okay, what kind of switcher do I need? How many sources do I have for video? So that you could combat or communicate about that line. And let's not say combat. Let's so we can communicate about that item, right? Playback resources. So when we're talking about playback, we're actually talking about playing videos that are queued. Again, the switcher that's over there, it can, you can cue playbacks and things like that with that little switcher with an additional piece of equipment. You can load some small media files on it, but this is a playback and recording device. This AJA Key Pro has kind of been an industry standard for about 10 years. That's a line item. If you have 5 cameras and or let's say 2 cameras, 3 cameras, and a PowerPoint machine that you're recording, this is a great device to do that with, and it's going to be solid, industry standard. If you see it on your bill for $450 a day, $500 a day, and you're mission critical with your recording, and you want ISO recording, which means I want all 3 or 4 of my camera angles, and I want PowerPoint, you want a Key Pro, right? Can the smaller switcher on the other side do it? Yes, it can. It can do that as well, but you don't want that switcher doing that and switching your program and streaming, right? So yes, $125 on one side, maybe $450 on the other side, but a little bit of communication and understanding some of these devices can get you a long way to saving some money. Let's talk about projection a little bit. I like what they've done here with the TV monitors. Great for PowerPoint for this size room, but when you're looking at projectors, you want to know how bright of a projector do I need for a certain size of screen. I have some approximate ranges that I like to do. You can take a screenshot of this if you like, but an 8-foot screen, you want to have anywhere from a 3K to a 5K projector. 10-foot screen, anywhere from a 6K to an 8K projector. 12-foot screen, and the K, let me go ahead and say what I'm saying. Let me slow down. 5,000 lumens, and you probably see it written out as 5,000 lumens, 8,000 lumens, 10,000 lumens. The K shortens it up. And lumens is just a measurement of brightness, right? It's a measurement of brightness. So that's how bright the projector is. Bigger screen, brighter projector, right? So you should be looking at your bill or your quote and seeing a 20K projector on an 8-foot tripod screen. You shouldn't see that just because they own it. And just because, you may not want to rent 4K, right? And I get it. If they want to give you that upgrade at the same price, take it. It's like, hey, I only need up to a 5,000 lumen projector for an 8-foot tripod screen. Be able to call that out, right, in certain ranges. But I will say, on the other side of it, if you're doing IMAG, image magnification, if you're actually portraying, like myself, you're taking the camera feed and you're putting it on screens because you're in a bigger room and you want to be engaging, you actually have to bump up that projector brightness a little bit. You want to think about that, and you want to make sure you have an adequate lighting stage wash, right? Because a PowerPoint on a screen looks very different than a video feed onto a screen. And you've probably seen it. So you may have had a budget and like, okay, I have a 8K projector on a 14-foot screen or a 16-foot screen. Great, it fits your budget. But then you come to the AV professional and you say, okay, I want to do IMAG. You want to do IMAG, but it's not going to look good. It's just not, all right? Just because you can do something doesn't mean you do it. So you have to be cognizant of that, when you're thinking about your budget and what your wants and desires are. You need to talk about that IMAG on the front end, right, when your RFP goes out. And now that I said RFP, and this is not really a part, I got 17 minutes, so I can keep adding some of these little things in here. I know one of my friends is going to be talking about ChatGPT. Look, use ChatGPT as an assist. I use ChatGPT and AI all the time. Use it as an assist, right? Don't use it as the only source. You have to talk to some humans from time to time. Don't do your RFPs with ChatGPT, please. Because if you send it to me, I know you did it with Chat. I won't blow your spot. I was going to grab one and show it and say, this is ChatGPT. You know why? Because of this. Because they're not matching certain equipment with, it's like, okay, it's like, I'll freeze from the analogy. But I can tell because you're quoting a piece of equipment that is inferior to another piece of equipment in your RFP that's like, okay, you have a $5,000 budget for your AV, but you just put in your RFP that you want a $1,000 a day line item. You did not talk to anybody about that. You pop that into AI and it spit it out to you. So AI isn't the end all be all at all. It'll get you in the ballpark. But you want to talk to somebody, shameless plug like me, that gets up at 12 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning, and is studying this gear. All right, that's why I do that, because AI is not gonna lead me, technology is not gonna lead me, I'm gonna lead technology. If anybody knows me, they know that about me, all right? So, let's talk, any questions? I'll freeze for a second. Any questions? I have 15 minutes, I'm gonna power through it. Any questions? All right.
I have a question.
Okay, go for
And
it.
this may not be related to meetings, but so just stop me and say, Tammy, that's not related if it's
Go for
not.
it.
But when I'm going to shop for a TV, and it says the 4K or something like that, and
Oh,
the
yeah.
brightness and stuff, by you saying this, is that the education that you're giving me too for purchasing a
Well-
TV? Because you know how you go in the store and they all look different? And I'm trying to figure out which one.
No, that's good.
Seriously.
No, that's
Okay.
good. You have to, so you should, if a 4K option is out there, you should get a 4K option, right? But there are other things, like there's HDR, where it's getting like, okay, the clarity of the blacks and the distance between the blacks and the other colors is, HDR is playing in that ballpark as far as what it looks like to your eye, right? Get a 4K TV because it gives you more better pixel quality. But to be honest with you, all the streaming you're doing with Netflix and Vimeo, and all, that stuff is at 720 most of the time. Most of the time it's not at 1080p. So 4K is 4 times higher than 4 HD, which is 1080. So it's like 5 times or 5.5 times higher than 720. So what I'm saying is, like, if your TV is just a 1080 TV and you're streaming Netflix, you're getting the best pixel quality that you're gonna get out of it if you're streaming from that for the most part. Now, some streaming out there, that's bumping up to 4K, it'll tell you it's 4K, right? If it is 4K, your TV doesn't do 4K, you're not gonna get that quality experience that you're looking for. But 90% of the stuff out there right now is still 720. But it's gonna inch up a little bit, but it's gonna inch up as bandwidth is more accessible, right? To your phones and everything. So it's keeping the bandwidth down. They know that your eye, the consumer eye, is going to be fine with 720 for a long time until movies and everything, graphics continue to push the envelope and say, okay, to be able to render or encode and do all of these things, right, it needs to be at least at 1080. And then at some point at 4K for you to experience the way that you experience in a movie theater or something like that, if I answer your question. So buy a 4K TV, but don't get into the HDR stuff unless you're just a geek. I don't even buy TV. I'm not worried about any HDR. I don't have time to sit and watch TV at home like that. Most of the time I'm watching it on my phone or my iPad, so that 720 is gonna be just fine. Anybody else?
I hope that wasn't a dumb question.
No, that was a good question. No, that was a good question, and it relates. It relates.
Okay,
There's a bandwidth implication as I tied in, and there's a pixel quality implication. And I actually was going to talk about pixel quality when it comes to LED wall. So it kind of gets into that a little bit. So, all right, LED wall has been a trend in AV for about 2 years now. Everybody wants LED wall now because they think it's the best thing, right? But you can't always afford LED wall. Right? It sounds good, and just because you want it, is it really the best thing for you? You have to understand the pixel pitch. So there's 3.9 out there, there's 2.9, and there's 1.9. 3.9 being bigger pixels, bigger dots. 1.9 being the smaller dots, and it's down to, I saw a wall the other day, I think it was 0.9 or something last month at a trade show. But what does that mean for you? The lower, the sharper the image, right? And then what do you need it for? Really, a 3.9 wall. If you're 30 feet away from that 3.9 wall, you probably, as a consumer, would not be able to know if it's a 3.9, 2.9, 1.9, if you're 30 feet away from it, right? So if you have an AV provider say, oh, I want to upgrade my 20-foot screens to an LED wall, right? It's like, okay, we have a 3.9 in-house, and we can do that for you and work with you, but oh, no, I want a 1.9. Because you hear the buzzwords, you hear people talking about it. You can't afford a 1.9, probably, You probably can't afford it. And if you can, great. We'll get that 1.9 in there for you, right? But that 3.9 is probably going to suffice for you because your closest attendee is probably only going to be as close as 30 feet away from that wall, right? Now, when we get down into scenic, using them for scenic towers and whatnot, and you're on a trade show floor, closer proximity, bigger wall, you may want that finer pitch, right, for that marketability on these trade show floors. So when we go to places like WEC, that I see a lot of, a few of my friends there, a lot of those walls are going to be 1.9 at the minimum on the trade show floor. But that's somebody walking up looking at something that's being marketed, a city, a venue or whatnot that's being marketed, and they're going to be 5 feet away from it, right? So they'll be able to see the pixel pitch, of a 3.9 quality wall versus a 1.9. And so there's a price implication between the two of those, right? And it can be, it can be great, right? So what is the trap in this, right? Avoid the trap. Know your screen sizes and projector size options, right? Understand if you're doing, if you're going to do iMac or not, right? You need to know that on the front end so that you can get a brighter projector. Have an idea of rigging or not, even with projection. So we can do short throw projectors, we can, or short throw lenses on projectors, right? To get into tight spaces, right? You might not be able to afford an LED wall. It might be a tight room, and it's like, okay, I have 1,000 people. I don't have space to put a projector here, and I also don't want to pay for rigging. A lot of times your AV provider can throw in a ultra short throw lens where they can sit it on the floor, and they could, definitely to sit on the floor, do like they're doing here, putting a barrier around it, right? So nobody kicks it. Don't ask me how I know, and I won't tell you. Know when you need a V2, just like we talked about an A2, A1, A2, V1, V2. The V2, same thing. You have someone that's switching, controlling the slides on the screen and maybe controlling when the iMac pops up on the screen, but you have videos that need to be played back. You have a PowerPoint that you need to switch over to really quickly. That V2 is needed to help make those changes, right? So that's an add-on, and it's not necessarily a subtraction budget, as far as saving you costs. It's an add-on, but it impacts your production in a positive way when you understand these needs, right? You might need to go from a 3.9, from a 1.9 LED wall to a 3.9 LED wall so you can afford a V2 and an A2, right? So having this knowledge, I know, I'm geeking out a little bit, but this is like very light nerd, but I hope I'm not boring y'all. But I love talking about this stuff. And do you really need an LED wall? Projection is great. Nothing's wrong with projection. If you can, afford a bright projector on a big screen and you can rig it, right? LED wall, comes in nicely when you want to do some scenic things. It also gets tricky with scenic when there's an LED wall behind you and you do a video. You better have a videographer that understands that and a photographer, or you're going to end up with moire or those lines and all those things. Because we've gone in, we've adjusted our cameras for video. I have 7 minutes. Adjusted our camera for video, but then the photographer comes in and doesn't know how to adjust it, or the camera doesn't have the ability to adjust to compensate for the LED wall being in that proximity of the person that's speaking. So you end up with those lines and those imperfections in your photos, even though the video that we delivered is spot on. So understand those implications as well when you're getting an LED wall. 7 minutes, lighting basics. So any questions? Any questions about video? Yeah. Anything? Okay. Lighting basics, movers, uplight, stage wash. Know your client, know the event, save money, case study. Let's see, I had a conference that featured a processional, right? It was a big part of their conference. I've been working with them 12 years. And we were lighting with the lights that are similar back there in the back, the Lecos, but they're the hot ones. Those are LED Lecos, but hot to touch, incandescent lights. They weren't LED. And we were focusing these lights on this long processional aisle. It was an impact on the rigging time. It was an impact of on the staging company that was actually laying the carpet. And there was, of course, cost implication all the way around for all of those things. Well, one year, I've done this event with them maybe 4 years, and I said, you know what? I'm going to switch to moving lights, right? Then I don't have to focus the lights. So I had a big T-truss, so I had an aisle, 200 feet long, and stage that was 80 feet wide, red carpet going, so I had the T-truss to light the middle and everything. So I said, you know what, I'm going to invest into moving lights. That way we can take the moving lights up. They don't have to wait for us to get up there in a, you've all seen it, where the riggers get in there or the lighting person get in there with the rigger and they're focusing the lights, pointing it, to the carpet to make sure that everything is lit for the camera angles and whatnot. We didn't have to do that year. I was able to, that next year, I bought and invested in the moving lights, took the light rig up, and I cut the T-truss out, and I just used movers, 4 or 5 movers that hit different areas of the runway for them because they just wanted the processional coming in. Just really needed to light them from the front. Well, for me, I saved the client time, rigging, money on rigging costs, and I saved us a ton of time, right? So Tech Factory got the biggest win out of it, and I was happy about that. It's always for the client, but at the end of the day, if I can win big as well, I want to win big as well, right? So I didn't have to charge them any more for it, and ended up with a successful in and out of that event that became a lot more timely, a lot more cost effective for them. So understanding your client, understanding what these fixtures can do to change your event, right? To save you money, to save you time, because time is often money. So what's the trap? Or how to avoid the trap? Know what your needs are. Know the role of a lighting lead, right? Or do you need an L1, right? That's a point of contention in Tech Factory when we're slapping L1s on jobs that, okay, do we really need an L1 or are these lights going on and staying on, or I really need a video person that knows how to turn the lights on and off, right? If the lights aren't changing, do I really need an L1, right? Or do I need people to just know how to do this, been in the craft for a while? Know when rigging is needed. Same type of thing, constant thing. I didn't have a rigging section because I didn't think I had time, and I don't because I have 4 minutes. But I've talked about rigging in audio, talked about rigging a little bit in video, and talked about, again, a little bit of rigging and lighting. Know what focusing lights mean. Oh, let me talk to you about this. House rig lights. I won't say what venue this is, but went in a venue one time, stage watch, they already have it rigged. They wanted to throw it on the client's bill to focus the lights at, I don't know, it's cost $2,000 to focus the lights or whatever, right? So we get there, and the lights are up, and I'm like, I didn't see anybody go on a lift to focus any lights. I didn't hear anybody ask any questions about where we wanted the light focus or where the podium position is gonna be, or if it's 2 or 3 podiums or any of that. But hey, they're charging you for focusing lights, and focusing lights means what I was talking about earlier, going up in a lift, pointing, aiming, focusing, making sure that the lighting is hitting the areas that you want to hit on that stage, right? But if you're being charged for it, and they're not just leaving it as, oh, business as usual, there's an even wash on the entire stage, why are you paying for it? You should not be paying for lights being focused if they're not going up in the lift and focusing the lights, right? It's just plain and simple. When to upgrade. So add lighting for camera capture. So we were talking about image magnification. If I was doing iMag, you definitely want lighting, all right? You can't do iMag if you didn't have lighting added onto your build. There's no reason to do it. It's going to look terrible. And then you're going to blame me, and I don't like it. Floating text for breakouts, right? So, yeah, you have 20 breakout rooms. That's great. I don't want text in the room. That's okay. That's fine, too. But we need a floating tech per, depending on the number of breakout rooms and depending on the company, we do every 3 rooms, right? You need that. Yeah, and you want that for dongles, for this is not working, that's not working. And in in-house facility, sometimes that's covered in your service charge, right? Understand that there's a service charge implication as well. So you may have A, B quote, but when it hit that BEO, it's going to be another 20% on it sometimes, right? And sometimes the hotel, how do I know I started in the hotels? Right, so I speak from a position of strength. I didn't always own Tech Factory. But, sometimes the hotel just bypasses the 20%, like, okay, you quoted separately. We don't want anything to deal with it, bill them separately and give us our percentage. Know that the in-house or that the house provider, right, is giving, you should always know that they're giving the hotel some of that money, right? So apples to apples quote, have to tell you, $100,000 quote here, $200,000 quote there. Right? It shouldn't scare you that it's half the price because guess what? Somebody's getting that money, right? So we're really doing the job for the same amount of money, to be honest, right? As the in-house. So don't be afraid if American AV gives you $100,000, and they have in-house as well, but if they give you a $100,000 quote and an in-house provider gives you a $175,000 quote, the in-house provider is making $100,000 as well, right? So that has scared clients in the past. I think you're missing something. No, you're not missing anything. What you're missing is you don't know that there's a kickback. But that's a contract. That's capitalism, right? I got 30 seconds. Any questions? Any questions? I didn't make it through all my slides, but boom, 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 boom. Well, that's how you can find me. All right. Well, I appreciate you all's time. Thank you, man. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Another round of applause, please, for Ricardo. Well, thank you. Next up is lunch. A couple of quick announcements before that, but after this, we're going to go out the doors behind you and go get some food. Our next